This is the final video explaining why Goblin Slayer is garbage. In this video, we'll be discussing the entire story narrative while taking into consideration the prior videos we made explaining why this series is the worst thing ever written and why it should die in piss. We'll also be taking into consideration the spin-offs too, and we'll be going over the story in its chronological order until that continuity breaks. We'll be talking about the nonsensical politics, its disregard to talking about the psychological trauma of sexual abuse and rape, in accumulation with the story pretending its characters are traumatized by any of the events, things, and or see the things they actually do within the story, with the final grand poobah of the entire event, of us talking about the dreadful attempt of character development within this story, not even reaching levels of passability, making Mars of Destruction seem enjoyable considering you can laugh at the rant story and the very fact that it's only one episode. I want you to take particular notice that the overall massive problem with Goblin Slayer is that the atmosphere and the narrative of the story consecutively doesn't fit any of the characters, as they all act goofy and plucky and bounce off the walls like kids as if they forgot to take their ADHD medication while constantly being put in life or death scenarios. And I remind you that these are supposed to be fucking adults. So let's start with the counterproductive title Goblin Slayer Year 1, which features the main character fighting against impossible odds in the first few chapters. So Goblin Slayer's backstory is that his sister got raped by a bunch of goblins, therefore not only does he decide to become a T-1000 robot, but he also becomes a bag of rocks with the intellectual capacity of a ravenous coyote and or animal with rabies, as he sits underneath a bed for 3 days watching his sister and female friends get raped viciously by goblins as they spawn the goblin children right in front of him, with nameless main protagonist helplessly doing nothing but being able to only watch and keep silent. This does not traumatize him, cause any psychological discomfort, it doesn't scar him for life or doesn't add any PTSD into the story, drastically changes character or the plot of any matter, but instead it makes the story even worse because the story refuses to acknowledge these types of psychological conditioning when it comes to this particular character, and would rather indicate edginess and psychological trauma by showing a edgy glowy eye. In fact, we never see any indication ever in the story that any character is traumatized by this in any way, making the main character's motivations for the actions within the story bare bone at best, with zero defining characteristics besides, once again, a fucking glowing eye. Now, this is where the story requires you to read the Wikipedia page to understand what's happening next, because someone called the author forgot to add what the hell happened in between these moments. So after 3 days of non-stop orgy death rape, Goblin Slayer makes his escape, where he encounters the mangled corpses of his fellow villagers until he's acted upon by goblins, then saved by his master, otherly known as, get this, burglar, who not only viciously abuses him, but also tutors him in the art of goblin slaying. Now, what the story does here is beyond intelligent, making those individuals with a high IQ quake in their boots because it's so intelligent. It's Rick and Morty smart. As not only does the story not decide to show you whatsoever any training of any degree, but nothing but child abuse, we see Goblin Slayer, the main protagonist, automatically become a T-1000 murder bot with zero training. Now, what people are going to say is there are flashbacks. However, none of those flashbacks are informative, nor helpful to understanding why this story is called Year 1, but we'll talk about that a bit later. Now, after seeing a bunch of boobs and inexplicable amount of incompetent women with zero personality appear, besides the driving and hard ambition to lust for the main protagonist, everyone convinces themselves with lies, saying that goblins have the intellectual capacity of babies, even though we'll see the statement can clearly be debated upon, having significant doubts in the information provided for the adventures in this world, considering we're about to see a bunch of goblins murder a bunch of people who are adventurers and or civilians with the intelligence of adults, teenagers, and old men. Now, after a bunch of fan service and pandering, Goblin Slayer finally armors up and acquires his signature set, also receiving everyone's favorite glowy eye helmet, which provides no detail about the character's emotions, besides edgy edgelord's expressions, and oh yeah, of course, there are more boobs in the centerpieces of each panel. Following this, Goblin Slayer goes on his first quest, finally. But unfortunately, before then, we get some needed backstory about his abusive master, who not only thinks he's a waste of time and space, but once again, as I overstate this, constantly abuses him in horrid ways, which everyone seems to be quite fine about in the Kiss manga comment section because it's apparently cool, I guess? Yeah, child abuse is fucking great. Anyway, back to the adventure where Goblin Slayer fights about, I don't know, let me count here, 1, 2, 3, 4, oh, here it is, 20 more goblins on his first quest! Without getting maimed, injured, or suffering any traumatic injury, with zero concern or digression for his own life because he's such a pro. In fact, Goblin Slayer seems to be killing all of these goblins so swiftly without any problems, like he's tearing through all of them like they were all made out of tissue paper. And in addition to this, a shaman goblin shows up with a higher intellectual capacity than an infant, not only possessing magical powers and strategical aptitude, but also has the know-how to understand English and speak in complete full sentences. In addition to this, not only does he speak English to other goblins, apparently all the other goblins understand the English. So what the hell are you talking about with the intelligence of infants crap you gave us 2 chapters ago, explaining that goblins had the intellectual capacity of infants when they clearly don't have the intellectual capacity of infants? Also, this guy rapes and plunders women like he was eating fucking candy. Now, of course, after Goblin Slayer shows up, fights 10 additional goblins, adding a 30 kill count currently, and the magical shaman goblin shows up and starts using his magical powers to fight him, a fucking orc shows up. And guess what? Just guess. I bet you can guess what happens. That's right. Not only does he fall off a fucking cliff, he kills all of them and walks away like he was nothing because this isn't year 1. This is fucking year 10. Batman couldn't even do half of the shit Goblin Slayer's doing. He fought a orc after fighting 30 other goblins. Then he fought a goblin that's a shaman, shooting magical firebolt / lightning attacks at him simultaneously while killing goblin grunts as well. And he doesn't get hurt at all, but acquires some minor bumps and bruises. Oh yeah, he kills a couple babies and his eyes are all glowy, and I have no clue what that means, but like I'm saying, this is year 1, everyone. Year 1, first quest, fighting about 30 goblins, fighting a shaman goblin as well, then fighting a fucking orc, all on the first quest. No injuries, no problem. Year 1 Goblin Slayer, everyone. Ugh, Goblin Slayer is so fucking great. As the story goes on, blah blah blah, Goblin Slayer meets Cow Tits, and of course she's automatically in love with him, while her main features are, of course, she's a LOL, she's so random, and Cutesy Pie having zero intellectual capacity, probably having less IQ points than an actual goblin, with massive tits and ass, with the intention of taking Goblin Slayer back home to try to fuck him because apparently they were childhood friends. Meanwhile, a bunch of nameless adventurers who haven't put their big boy pants on yet decide they want to go out there and kill some goblins, but thank God Goblin Slayer tags along this time or they'll all be dead by the next time. Anyway, after the LOL, this is so random, Cutesy Pie fight scenes when everyone sits there and makes jokes and laugh and picks up little bunnies like they weren't in the middle of a fight or anything, Goblin Slayer gets his edge on when he decides to do an autopsy on a goblin just to be really edgy. He claims this is for, of course, research purposes, but the author completely forgets to tell us what he finds in the goblin anatomy. And even if he did, I highly doubt this character has the knowledge or intellectual capacity to understand what the fuck he's looking at in the first place, so I have no clue why he cut that goblin open, neither other than to be edgy. Anyway, a bunch of cutesy pie stuff happens again, which is a trend in this series. The group goes on a raid without Goblin Slayer. Keyword, they go on a raid without Goblin Slayer, which signs all of their death warrants automatically because Goblin Slayer isn't there. And while everyone's dying, the writer decides this is a good chance to show this one character's panties who got their head bitten off by the Onyx Pokemon, because that's what everyone wants to see in the middle of a death scene, the chick's panties. Point being, everyone dies, but at least we get to see this girl's underwear as she's being decapitated. I mean, brilliant writing. 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10. And of course, this is followed up with some more cutesy pie LOL random shenanigans from Cow Tits immediately after that chick's death. Because LOL, it's so funny. It's so funny how this character isn't useful at all and has no character arc within this story at all, serving no purpose in fan service, showing off boobs and ass in every panel she's in. LOL, it's so funny. No, her character is even self-aware of what she is. When she decides to walk around the farm with nothing but her panties on and a tight shirt, she gets all embarrassed when she's found out she's a slut from Goblin Slayer and naturally covers up the best way she can. I don't know why she's doing this, considering she deliberately walked from her room, went down the stairs, walked around the entire farm area, then was all shocked that Goblin Slayer was in the barn. You offered your house to the man, and of course he showed up there. So why are you all like, oh my god, he's in my house and he's seeing my panties, when you're fucking did it on purpose? Oh my god. Oh, just a brilliant writing. Just fucking brilliant. It's amazing. What makes the scene even more fantastical, there's about 4 pages of her walking around all naked in her house, or partially naked in her house, anyway, and then she's all like, oh my god, it's Goblin Slayer, can't show more of my panties because I'm on my period. No. Anyway, back to what everyone wants to see, more child abuse, because that's honestly what I came to read this manga for. Not the story, not the narrative or the characters, just child abuse. Burglar, he's... well, oh god, the panels speak for themselves. You can call this training, you can call this insanity, but I'm gonna call it child abuse because there is no reason why this man should be doing this to this fucking child. It makes no sense. He's not even speaking in complete sentences. He's speaking mumbo jumbo, and somehow the character, the main character, is able to translate and decode this cryptic code he's speaking to him into complete sense. It makes no sense. You can read it for yourselves. It's on the screen. It's a bunch of bullshit, and the writer thinks it's fucking cool when it's not. Clearly Goblin Slayer isn't learning anything. He's just being this punching bag for this old man who likes torturing kids, who has schizophrenia or has psychosis or some shit like that. It's fucking disgusting. And the best part about this is I'd be okay with this if the story actually fucking explains something. It doesn't even explain why he does this. He just says, I'm just gonna abuse the shit out of this kid, and hopefully he just becomes a class S adventurer one day. The story doesn't even explain why he does what he does. It makes no sense. It's really funny. Anyways, after this, more cutesy pie LOL, this is so random, it's not funny shenanigans. Then, after that, everything is followed up with some more pointless dialogue that doesn't add any characteristics or add any dynamic character traits to any of the characters besides the very fact that they're cardboard cutouts, stereotypes. But then again, none of these characters compare to the Lancer character, who is the worst and most annoying character in this entire series. This character is so bad, it seems the writer is writing 3 different characters at the same time, with flippant personality changes every time the plot needs a new convenience to drive the story along. Not only is this character literally big-headed, which is emphasized in the story, but will literally be retcon, but his dialogue is absolutely atrocious, with the character being a grown-ass man, acting like he's a 9-year-old kid who discovered what pixie sticks are for the first time, and began snorting it like crack. Oh my god, this character fucking sucks, man. Oh man, he makes no sense. Oh, and his fan service girlfriend isn't doing much help for the story either, besides expositing exposition, man. Oh my god, this story. Anyway, Goblin Slayer goes on another quest, this being his second quest, and pretends he's Doom Guy from Doom when he's nothing but a lazy ripoff, full of Mary Sue wish fulfillment that the writer purposely installed within the story so he could personify himself onto the character, which we were supposed to be doing as the readers, which nobody does. We get some more LOL it's so random moments, with the sole difference being that it's from kids that are stupid, discovering once again that Goblin Slayer is doing all of this solo, with this still being called Goblin Slayer Year 1. I would have no problem with this being a solo Year 1 adventure, Kirito style, but when you fight 30 fucking things, and one that's shooting out magical bolts at you, and a fucking orc, that is not Year 1, that is Year 5 or 10. Anyway, this is going to be the most ludicrous shit you have ever seen in your entire life, especially with the continuity this story is going on. So we get some piss poor economics and politics where the government refuses to protect its resources and leaves everyone to hang for and fight for themselves in this monster infested world. Then some beyond stupid analogies making goblins the personification of evil incarnated into the world. And finally, after trying to cram not one, not two, but 3 terrible storylines into one chapter, we finally get to see the plot actually progress after the fan service is all said and done. The pandering of this chapter basically has Goblin Slayer defending a village, while a bunch of nameless characters fight a rock eater monster. So to defend the village from goblins, because the government can't protect its own assets because they believe fighting monsters somewhere else takes priority over protecting their own agriculture and economics, because that makes sense, Goblin Slayer decides to play tower defense because he's an intellectual with a high intelligence. Anyway, Goblin Slayer kills about 10 goblins, and struggles with it, even though 6 chapters ago, he fought 30 goblins, a fucking wizard, and a giant-sized fucking orc without any problems. This is the best part. I'm serious, this is the best part. Long story short, he gets knocked the fuck out by a little rock! He gets knocked the fuck out by a little rock! He can fight 30 different things, a wizard, and get smashed by an orc, but when he gets hit by this rock that was imbued with the magic of Jesus, he gets knocked out! He gets knocked out! Okay, I really don't think I have to explain it, but I'm gonna say it out loud anyway, because, you know, some people just need it to be said so it can be acknowledged. 6 chapters ago, Goblin Slayer fought about 30 goblins, fell off a cliff, fought a shaman goblin, fought a giant-sized orc, got crushed, was poisoned, got an antidote, and basically did all that, and was barely bruised and injured. And basically we have it to here where he gets knocked the fuck out by a little pebble and struggles to fight 10 goblins. You can get that bullshit out of here because that makes 0 sense. But transitioning to the second plot line nobody cares about, and by the way, Goblin Slayer gets overpowered again by a trio of 3 additional goblins, considering that it was their entire strategy to basically lure Goblin Slayer to this one specific plot where they would jump him, even though this is the intelligence of infants operating here. And it works. Goblin Slayer gets knocked the fuck out again, and he doesn't die because the plot needs him to live because he's a Mary Sue. And you'll see what I'm talking about a little bit later in this video when we see characters get teared through like tissue paper, because goblins don't discriminate unless you're a man, because they're only effective at killing women. But like I said, transitioning to the plotline nobody cares about, them fighting this giant rock eater, basically we have characters getting their face melted off by blobs when Goblin Slayer gets beaten down by 3 goblins again, like I just said, even though, you know, I'll mention this again, 7 chapters ago he fought 30 goblins, a giant orc, and a wizard, which I have to emphasize on again, because this is pretty big, considering what he did 7 chapters ago in comparison to what's happening now. But after getting beat down, his glowy eye goes out, which I presume means he's unconscious. Now, for the life of me, I don't understand why they just don't kill him, like I said earlier, but considering our Goblin Slayer characters in the main series, I'm sure our Mary Sue will survive this bullshit with some bullshit explanation, considering, you know, the series must go on, and even even though you can't kill a character off without blah 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 happening. But I will say this again, because I'm really emphasizing on this. In a little bit later in this video, we're going to see goblin hordes literally tear through hordes of people with zero afterthought. But in this one particular case, they don't kill the main character simply because he's the main character. Anyway, blah blah blah, they're still in this dungeon, blah blah blah, the Onyx Pokemon's killing everyone, and uh-oh, this one guy's life's in danger, but I don't care because he doesn't have a name. Anyway, now we go to Goblin Slayer proper, which is the main series. The chronology of this is Goblin Slayer Year 1, Goblin Slayer, then some Goblin Slayer brand new days in between and mixed in with there, but the story writer doesn't care about continuity, so it doesn't explain anything in the manga, but to Goblin Slayer proper we go. So, considering we've just gone through 2 arcs of this drivel, we're going to speed through the remainder of this garbage to save me time, because it's pretty easy to spot the inaccuracies in the narrative in combination with the horde character attributes, displaying what they are capable of doing at times, and showing sometimes they can do this, and at other times showing what they can do because the plot demands them to do it, to progress the story and support the Mary Sue narrative that I've talked about previously. So, Priestess, the happy-go-lucky adventurer who is used for comedic relief in every single chapter, spews talk about high optimism with a can-do attitude, sporting the most indomitable of impenetrable wills no matter how bad the situation is. Goes on this adventure, has all her new friends die in an anticlimactic way when they're all death raped and pretty much ravaged through by goblins, watches everyone get, their party on with all the other girls, get splattered like watermelons on the ground, and of course, while this happens to everyone else, unfortunately, not a lick of damage is on her body because she's a Mary Sue, and the narrative needs to protect its characters because none of them can get hurt, nor do no harm, nor do any wrong. But blah blah blah, the chick gets saved by Goblin Slayer, and following all of his events, she begins to suck his dick and travel with him wherever he goes because she has no life outside of being Goblin Slayer's slave, and she is the cardboard cutout of rancid 100-year-old stereotype on a salad bowl and a saltine cracker. Naturally, Goblin Slayer is flexed all his edgy muscles in front of her throughout the entire process of saving her, throughout the entire duration of this little story arc in this one chapter, to explain, oh, the rape and violence happens because it's all normal in this world and no one should bat an eye to any of it. So, because he has this entire introspection on life, nobody cares that it happens at all because it's completely normal to get raped if you're a woman. But all of this comes at the pinnacle forefront when we discover there is no psychological impact linking any of the violence to this world to anything that happens within the story series together with its characters. Meaning, the characters can watch someone's face get melted off, the characters can watch women spawn goblin children and get raped violently in front of them, and none of them will have any psychological changes. The characters won't bat an eye to it. They won't have an introspection about their life. They'll say, well, that's just normal in this world, and they'll just keep on trucking because they just have these indomitable wills that just allow them just to not care or give a fuck. But also, considering they're the main characters and they're all Mary Sue's, what they do here is they affirm themselves while validating their existence, while giving them a reason to continue on because they're supposed to be the heroes. Oh yeah, I almost forgot to say, we learn about some enigmatic lore about some Earth Mother that the story doesn't want to explain. So what it does here is that it's some type of Earth cult, and there's some Earth Mother, and the Wikipedia had no information about it, and the story didn't want to tell me anything about it either, so I just don't care, but I'll mention it here just in case, because the story doesn't want to expand on its own lore in future chapters. We just need to know there's some type of Earth Mother that the priestess is worshipping, and I guess it shields her mind from the psychological traumas of the world or some bullshit. I don't know, maybe she's on sedatives or something like that, I don't know. But after having zero introspections about life, after seeing all her male friends get eviscerated, while all her female friends completely get sodomized, this life-altering event doesn't change anything about her personality, nor changes anything about who she is. We still get the optimistic optimist who is clearly in a situation that's over her head, but looks happily to the future without any consequences. And of course, we get some bullshit fan service immediately after all this death and rape, because that's exactly what we want to see. In combination with this, we are reintroduced to my favorite bipolar character, the Lancer. And this time, not only does he have a new personality that does not fit who he was in the prior series, what was previously established into the story, this type of character that we get now is basically an asshole. But he'll have one more transformation, which we'll see later down the line. And of course, the Witch Lady is nothing but exposition exposited like normal. But after watching a party of 4 girls and a +1 getting raped again, these are completely new girls and they were all retarded, considering they were kidnapped, abducted, and sexually assaulted, and brutally raped by the creatures with intelligence of, infants, because the story wants to continually say that. Well, even though, I can argue that, hey, this was a sophisticated, elaborate trap made by goblins, because, everyone's operating on the assumption that they're all stupid, when they're not. Of course they're all going to fall prey to a dumb trap that some goblins set up, because, hey, they're dumb. But anyway, blah blah blah, blah 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 blah, Goblin Slayer shows up with the handy dandy priestess, and as predicted, they kill everything with a low amount of effort, and Goblin Slayer drops a bunch of cliche lines while his eye glows, and of course he's super edgy, and at the very end of it, we meet the worst character in the entire story, other than Worst Boy Lancer, the High Elf Archer, who's supposed to be a 2,000-year-old woman, but acts like she's a 9-year-old with ADHD, with the stereotypical archetype of, I'm in love with the main protagonist, so I'm gonna suck his dick and do whatever he says, because in this one particular moment, I need his help, but throughout the duration of the series and as it continues, I'm gonna hang around him, because I have no meaning in my life besides when I'm with him, and being his slave makes me feel fulfilled, because I'm a woman and I'm a poorly characterized one at that. You see, the problem with this series is it has a seinen tag and it continuously has a seinen tag, then it throws an ecchi tag into it, then the story just goes to hell and it just doesn't make sense at all. This is the best part about this fucking character. Even though I'm supposed to be wearing some actual fucking armor, even though I know there's some monsters and some horrid shit out there, even though I know there's fucking goblins and blobs that can melt your face off, I'm gonna sit here and I'm gonna wear no armor whatsoever, so I can capitalize on my sex appeal, so I can seduce men and seduce young adult teens and teenage boys into reading this manga, because I can't make any sales from my narrative storytelling and the characters that I write, because they're all fucking boring, and I have to add some sex appeal into it, because no matter what I do and no matter what I try, I have to make sure these girls are sexy as possible and that they're all artificially hot so everyone can beat their dick to one of them. I'm gonna be completely honest here. I could sit there and edit the text bubbles of this entire story and add some rancid dialogue, and you would honestly believe this is the character actually saying this dialogue, very well due to the very fact that this is such an undeveloped character and she's so poorly written. It'd be honestly no different her saying, hey, I suck dicks and I have gobble cock in my mouth all day, than actually having some real dialogue from an actual person. I remind you too, this character is supposed to be fucking 2,000 years old. Here she is bouncing off the walls like a little kid. Anyway, blah 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 blah, goblins, blah 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 blah, lol, it's so random dialogue, blah 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 blah, 2 more useless characters are added to the story, blah 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 blah, stupidity, blah 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 blah, even when the series tries to be serious, it's just stupid, blah 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 blah, next story arc, blah 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 blah, titties in the fucking panels. So they go to these ruins, right? They kill everything in the entrance because that's what they do as the main protagonist, and they don't have any problem whatsoever doing it. A bunch of blah blah blah, and inside, while acting like little kids, complaining about things I wouldn't even complain about in this video, they'd start fighting about whether they should go left or right. I remind you, Goblin Slayer is 22, the freaking High Elf Archer is 2,000, the priestess is 17 years old, the fucking shaman guy is at least 30, and the lizard's about 60 years old. Here they are, all fighting, arguing about if they should go left or right. Anyway, they decide to go what other direction I don't care about. And basically, there's a rape victim inside, and her skin's fucking falling off because that's what I want to see. And she's all chained up, and she's being raped and assaulted because, man, that's exactly what I want to see. A woman shoved through a fucking blender. So, some things die, blah, 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 kill, 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 gobble, 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 and at the very end of it, let me guess, boss fight. Now, this is one of the most ridiculous things you'll ever see in any story. This character they're about to fight is so stupidly powerful that is honestly baffling that none of them die or get injured in this fight. Now, let me tell you about this orc. Not only does he have immense strength and can crush people like ants, he has fucking Dragon Ball Z Kamehameha Blast. You think I'm joking? He fucking has Kamehameha Blast, and he fucking has a Spirit Bomb. It's absolutely insane how powerful this one character is. It's ridiculous. And not only can the priestess defend against all of his long-range attacks, even though 7 chapters ago, the story went out of its way to explain specifically that she was a novice adventurer and that this is specifically her second adventure, with the first adventure she's ever been on being chapter 1. She has magic that can ultimately stop Kamehameha Blast and Spirit Bombs. And the big grand event and grand poobah all of this is that she and nobody else within the party sustains any damage that has any lasting effects in the series, because every wound heals within the story without any problem, with the added bonus that the main character nor the cast of characters can actually defeat this creature. So the writer decides to add a Deus Ex Machina within the story and calls it, well, you know, Goblin Slayer was just prepared, just like Batman. Yeah, that's funny. But before we even get into that aspect about the story, remember when Goblin Slayer was knocked the fuck out by a little rock in chapter 1 of Goblin Slayer year 1, or somewhere around that timeline-ish between chapters 1 and 7? Well, this time, not only does it get hit by a 200-pound mallet wearing the same equipment that he was wearing in the prior series, he ricochets into a stone pillar, then face plants 100 feet into a stone cement, and survives without a single broken bone in his body. But earlier, I remind you, he got knocked the fuck out by a little rock! A little rock! While he was beaten senseless by 3 goblins. But this giant orc firing Kamehameha Blast and Spirit Bombs doesn't kill him on the first hit? Get that bullshit out of here! You cannot this makes no sense! I mean, seriously, a little rock and compared to a stone 200-pound mallet, and that doesn't kill him? What the fuck? Seriously? The story explains this away when he drinks a health potion and he's all better seconds later, but the story doesn't even explain how the fucking health potions even work within this story. People want to say this is a video game world because it's a video game. It's not a fucking video game world. That's the excuse the writer's using so it can justify all this bullshit. It makes you wonder at times like this. Is the healing potions instantaneous health? Is it regenerative health? Or does he even have an HP bar altogether? Because the story doesn't want to tell us. The story doesn't want to visually show us. It just shows us a glowy eye. And when the glowy eye is on, it's automatically in rage mode. And when the glowy eye goes out, that means he's unconscious or sleepy. Because it's Goblin Slayer. No, get that bullshit out of here. Tell the story the fucking proper way it's supposed to be told. And stop trying to be fucking enigmatic about things that should be basics within your goddamn world. But back to extra lazy story writing, Goblin Slayer uses the magic Ex Machina to win the battle. Now, what everyone wants to say is that it's a magic scroll! It was a magic scroll! It was teased a chapter ago! Well, let me tell you, while it's not valid and very bad storytelling. Well, it's valid in the story, but it's still not. Now, in story writing, there is this principle called Shovek's gun in a narrative. Basically, it says you can put a gun on a wall in chapter 1, in page 1 of a story, then you can have it fired in page 237, and that thing can automatically save the main character's life. But what you cannot do, repeat, what you cannot do is have a gun on a wall on page 1, then have it fired by page 3, especially when that gun is integral to the survival of the main cast, considering none of them have the capacity to beat the odds of this character because no one was prepared to fight this creature. Everyone should have died in this chapter, but because the main character is a Mary Sue, and the writer is so fucking incompetent and a novice at doing his job, and not thinking things through with common sense, and trying to be edgy and cool, he can't see that this is some serious bullshit. You cannot have the Deus Ex Machina introduced in a prior chapter, then have it used in this chapter, then never have this magic appear ever again within the series, until the plot's convenient use for it is ultimately needed. It's bad storytelling, it's bad characterization, it's bad progression of the narrative. Long story short, Goblin Slayer is able to kill the magical orc with a magical scroll that is conveniently had within the story, linked to the bottom of the ocean, he got from the magical ex machina weapon shop of the magical girl that hangs out with the Lancer character, in a storyline that isn't explained, isn't elaborated on, and isn't dwelled on, linking the two characters together, or is even mentioned ever again in the story. And if you really pay attention between the interactions between the characters, if you really pay attention and notice, you'll actually come to the realization that it seems that Goblin Slayer and the wizard hat chick don't even fucking know each other. You wonder why and want to know how I know this? It's because it's a Deus Ex Machina. If honestly they knew each other, why haven't they had a relationship within the story that the writer has showed us? It's because it's a plot device. And most importantly, it fits the exact Mary Sue narrative that I've been talking about day one for this fucking story. It's a Deus Ex Machina used to save the character. Meaning, he got the scroll from the magical girl hat solely because the plot demanded it, and the plot demanded to get him out of this situation unharmed. Look, I'd have no problem with this if the story explored the relationship the two characters have, but considering it doesn't in the future, and it doesn't in the past, and it doesn't even attempt to try to explain anything, I'm just gonna say it's not important, and it's a Deus Ex Machina, chop it up to lazy writing, and blah blah blah, Goblin Slayer wins, end of the story arc, and everyone go home. Now, what's completely abhorrent about this plot is that everyone listens to Goblin Slayer, and the government doesn't give a shit about the agriculture or its own economics or politics, which is just fucked up. And you think this chapter would actually capitalize what was said in the prior story arc with the relationship with the Lancer and the wizard hat guy in Goblin Slayer, but it doesn't, proving that this writer is still fucking incompetent. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, Digibro, Mother's Basement, a whole slew of YouTubers, we all harp on Ricky Kawahawa, but this is the new fucking punching bag. This is the new low right here, Goblin Slayer. The new fucking low, Goblin Slayer. That's right, Goblin Slayer is the new fucking low, everybody. I'm calling it. Screw Sword Online, it's Goblin Slayer, everyone. Anyway, let's just get into this new story arc. Blah blah blah, comedy, blah blah blah, fan service, blah blah blah, me, LOL, it's so random, hee, it's funny when it's not, stupid dialogue, blah blah blah, hee, dumb character interactions mixed in with some annoying characters. Then the final page actually shows the fucking plot, because that's what we all wanted to see, the Goblin King. To speed through this story is basically goblins are going to raid this farm, and it's the only farm the kingdom has apparently, considering that there isn't a farm ever mentioned besides this one within the story. Now, at the behest of Goblin Slayer and the Goblin King showing up, basically the Goblin King's all like, I want to create a nation for goblins because I care about all of you, but the secret to this entire story is that he's just another evil asshole with a political agenda, which only benefits him because he doesn't give a fuck about anyone else. I mean, seriously, it's the same copy and paste villain every time. I mean, how many times have I said this in the story? Blah, 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 political agenda, blah, 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 I'm evil just to be evil, I need power. I mean, how many videos have I made with that exact villain? I mean, that the same archetype. But anyway, blah blah blah, the undeveloped nature of the milk tick characters. She sadly doesn't want to leave this farm, very well due to the nature that she doesn't want to lose her home. She goes on this big ass rant that is completely just nonsensical, where she explains that she would rather be raped and tortured than leave this farm because she cares about it so much, even though the story doesn't want to tell us why she cares about it so much, or add any emotional weight or significant value explaining why she would be willing to 1, be tortured, 2, be raped, 3, start giving birth to goblin children. I mean, that's fucking extreme. That's like the most extreme thing that I've ever read in my entire life. I mean, shit, let me tell you something. If it was me, I'm not dying for anyone or anything. I'ma leave. If that was me, I would've been gone. But nah, this chick wants to get raped and tortured. So, on this entire predication of, I don't want to lose another home, and I'm being a selfish bitch right now, Goblin Slayer goes back to the guild with all the greedy assholes who only do things for money, and he gets on his knees like a little bitch and begs everyone for help. At first, nobody wants to help because it doesn't line their pockets with money. But all of a sudden, because the plot demands it, everyone helps Goblin Slayer because the plot demands it. And they help for the stupidest of reasons. Lancer, who's been a greedy asshole for the past 11 chapters, basically wants to help Goblin Slayer due to the very fact that Goblin Slayer got him a beer, and he's all like, well, you know, I'm willing to help because I got a beer right now. And then, with everyone else helping, because they think they're going to get paid 1 gold coin per goblin kill, which the guild knowingly doesn't have the money for, but due to the very fact that the merchant chick, or whatever the guild girl's name is, ultimately is the chick that also wants to suck Goblin Slayer's dick, she's willing to ultimately lie for him to get everyone to help because reasons, and she's in love with them. But back to the story where the government doesn't give a shit about its politics, economics, agriculture, or providing food for its own citizens. We get the only decent character in this entire series that is unfortunately killed, the Goblin King / the Goblin Lord. He's the only character that I actively rooted for to kill the main protagonist because he was such a perfectly written character. It's almost suspicious the very fact that he exists within the story, considering prior the story writer couldn't write for shit. Now, the Goblin Lord / the Goblin King, clearly a goblin with the intelligence of a child, has tactical strategic knowledge, the ability to speak English with the added bonus of him being able to organize and rally troops to fight on his behest, despite him being as weak and little as he is somehow the main antagonist of this entire arc. Anyway, his entire backstory is that basically he had the Gabu Mama, the human that plopped her out, and there was this other adventurer chick there, blah blah blah. She takes pity on it because he's a baby, and basically due to the very fact that he's still a baby, he basically picks up this rock and bashes this chick's head. And I mean, Jesus Christ, man, how did he know instinctively that this was a dangerous person? I mean, she was killing everyone around him. I guess he could surmise that this chick was bad news, but to pick up a rock and bash her head and without like 0 qualms, I mean, that takes nuts right there. I mean, it makes no sense, but hey, it was pretty cool to be completely honest. And as the story goes on, he begins to learn, blah blah blah. He starts hanging out with the hordes and stuff. He begins using people for his own political agenda, in his own gripe for power. And basically there's this one part of the story where he's all like, oh man, I'm gonna kidnap this woman, and because he's in love with this other adventurer, I'm gonna hold her hostage. And basically the dude's all like, give me back my woman. He basically throws the chick at this other dude, and she takes this fucking longsword and impales the chick through it's badass. It's honestly the coolest thing I've ever seen. I mean, I sound really ecstatic about this character, and when he showed up for the first time, I was hyped. I was like, man, Goblin Slayer's about to get his ass kicked. But basically, you see in the panel, he takes this longsword, shoves it up this chick's ass and through this other dude. It's pretty cool. But this guy was actually smart. It looked like he actually had a chance to be a decent villain in this series. But guess what? Guess what happens to him? Guess what? A character that relied on his intelligence, other than broad strength to win, is unfortunately killed by Goblin Slayer. And sadly, it just wasn't his day because it was Goblin Slayer. It was just his death day. Let me tell you and let me explain. So this is what happens. Goblin Slayer develops a war plan in a fucking day that works so perfectly. It's almost too fucking suspicious that his plan worked so perfectly. I mean, it was so absolutely flawless. Do you think he'd read the minds of all his opponents to actually win? Better yet, he hired them to fucking destroy the farm so he can grow notoriety and become a more popular person among the other adventurers. That's how fucking perfect his plan was. It went off without a hitch. It worked so flawlessly. It's just dumb. And guess what? Guess what? The story doesn't even tell you what his plan is. We just see the plan in action, and basically at the very end of it, he says, well, this was all a part of my plan. An entire war arc is in 3 chapters, and he wins. It's dumb. The only cool thing about this entire arc is that the Goblin Lord actually fucking hurts Goblin Slayer. When I saw this panel, I was clapping my hands. I was saying hallelujah, amen. I was dancing. I was like, man, this man is actually gonna get his ass whooped. And the story fucking bamboozled me. I'm not gonna lie, it fucking bamboozled me real good. I thought something was actually gonna happen, but nah, it's fucking Goblin Slayer. I got my hopes up for nothing. And like I said, he wins. He doesn't get injured. He doesn't get maimed. Well, he does get injured, but he doesn't get made. He doesn't have any lasting damage. No character development. He doesn't learn from his experiences. He's just all like, well, you know, just a normal day work of killing goblins and things like that. It's absolutely insane just reading this entire arc and you think something bad's gonna happen. This guy had this plan. It was just so fucking ridiculous. There's pictures on the screen and everything. But man, the plan the Goblin King really had seemed like it was gonna work, but it was Goblin Slayer, so, you know. But like I said throughout the duration of this video, most of the things that I said happens. It's revealed at the end that the Goblin King's nothing but an evil rapist. He doesn't care about no Goblin Nation. He's just an asshole who wants power, and of course he's an evil rapist vying for power because he's an evil asshole who only cares about himself because he's an evil asshole. Stereotype, archetype. So the cool thing about the Goblin King character was that originally he wanted to help people and other goblins of his kind, but fuck that, he just wanted power. So to wrap this entire story arc up, everything works perfectly, nobody dies, no one sustains any injury, there is zero character development, and worst of all, we have zero clue what anybody's name is in this entire fucking story arc. I mean, the way Goblin Slayer wins here is that Priestess magically shows up, and she uses this magical shield, and this magical shield shows up just perfectly on time, and Goblin Slayer just kills the thing, and that's pretty much it to end the story arc, blah blah blah. So, what we're gonna do here is we're gonna skip some stuff, because I don't want to be doing this video any longer than I actually have to, and you know, most of it is just pointless dialogue. But long story short of it is, because Goblin Slayer is Goblin Slayer and all the women around him in his harem want to suck his dick and please him to every degree possible, everyone just wants to give him quests so he can kill things so they can get their pussies wet. So he does this thing for this guild chick, and the guild chick tells him to meet this other person after getting this document, and it turns out it's a letter from this other character called the Blade Maiden, who's the leader of this cult that the story doesn't want to explain, but everyone's pretty accepting of, even though it's a cult. Long story short, you know, here's some titties that are some inexplicably huge, which leads me to believe that the Blade Maiden has cancer, but hey, not my problem. But other than that, she immediately falls in love with Goblin Slayer, because as it turns out, she was raised herself by goblins. And blah blah blah, she views everything Goblin Slayer does as a service to the world and holds them into a high pedigree, even though she's just very luxurious cult leader, and blah blah blah. Some more details on this later. But we're going on with this later because this is the part of the story where the incompetence of the entire cast reaches the maximum levels of folly that I can't even describe. So what happens is, for some reason that can't be explained within the story, and some reason that I can't even imagine up in my mind, goblins have stealthily, I repeat, goblins have stealthily infiltrated the kingdom and have been living within the sewers for months, and only recently this has been discovered. Goblin Slayer, as capable as he is, fortunately has been asked to kill every goblin in the sewers because he has an amazing track record for killing goblins. Now, let me say that again. Goblins have stealthily infiltrated the sewer systems of the kingdom and nobody noticed. The guards didn't notice, fucking maintenance people didn't notice, nobody noticed. The fucking goblins are fucking driving pirate boats in the sewers of the kingdom. It's absolutely insane how bad this story is at times. It's just inexplicably terrible. The freaking driving pirate ships in the sewers. It's so dumb. Hey everyone, goblins, right? The intelligence of children. I mean, a child definitely can sneak into the sewer systems and build freaking pirate ships and sail them in the sewer systems of an entire kingdom without anyone noticing for months on end, right? I mean, a baby could do that easy. I mean, goblins, intelligence of children, right? I mean, Any kid could do that for sure. Anyway, they go into the sewers to kill a bunch of stuff, then the ex-machina crocodile the size of a T-Rex comes, and it kills all the other goblins because it showed up conveniently to save the day, because Mary Sue, narrative plot convenience, blah blah blah, and apparently the guards have zero idea that there were giant crocodiles in the sewers. I mean, this story, it just shows up, it just random stuff just shows up. It makes no sense. Question becomes, if there were giant crocodiles in the sewers, how the hell did the crocodiles eat all the goblins, or at least kill them all, considering they're giant crocodiles? This also leads to another question of, how did the goblins, with the intelligence of children, manage to evade crocodiles that were giant for months on end, considering they don't have much intelligence? This makes no sense. I mean, there's too many questions to be asked about this story. I mean, these crocodiles are the size of T-Rexes. But anyway, the goblins on the little boat are actually being made by this dark elf, which is supposed to be the reveal of the entire end of the arc. And guess what? He's evil just to be evil. He worships a chaos god, and he has no other desire than to watch the world burn, as he sips on a lemonade with sunglasses on, because no villain in this series can actually have any real motivation to be doing something evil. I mean, I could write better plots than this with the same narrative in my sleep. This story says, hey, well, everyone's doing evil things for the sake of being evil, because that's just how the world works. They're just evil rapists out there. They're just evil people that just want political power. There's evil people that just want power. Blah, blah, blah. There's a bath scene. Blah, blah, blah. There's some fan service. Blah, blah, blah. Casually talk about how you were gang raped by monsters to the person you only met 2 chapters ago. Blah, blah, blah. Normal business and everything seems to be pretty normal. I mean, this fucking series, man. Now, if you thought Year Zero Goblin Slayer was stupid, you're gonna get a kick out of this. So, in this story, a fucking giant orc comes with like 50 goblins to fight 5 people, right? Not only does Goblin Slayer and his team kill everything without any problem, while the other ones run away like punk bitches even though the entire team's on the ropes. And priorly seen in this series, the goblins fight to the bitter end till they're all dead. In this story, Goblin Slayer gets hit with a 400-pound mallet, ricochets off a wall, into a casket, from a pillar, which is later to be revealed to be a staircase, which he didn't break his back on, and lives. Now, I can't believe I have to express how stupid this is. In one story, you have Goblin Slayer get knocked out by a little rock. Then, in another story, you have him get hit with a mallet, to fall into a stone pillar, to then fall 100 feet into stone cement, and get back up and fight. Then you get this story, where basically he gets whipped with a 200-pound mallet, again, in the same fucking pose. He ricochets off a wall into a stone casket, which would be later to be revealed to be highlighting a staircase, which he doesn't break his back on, and he lives, and he doesn't die. Meanwhile, in another story, he gets hit on the head with a rock, then bashed with some wooden clubs, and he gets incapacitated, and that's pretty much the end of the story. Get that bullshit out of here. This makes no sense. I mean, seriously, the only difference between now and then is that he has friends. In addition to that, he isn't even mained. He doesn't break any bone in his body, and he just gets back up and casually pops a potion, and he's right back into the fight. But after everyone gets a power-up and kills all the goblins because the plot demands that the Mary Sues ultimately defeat everyone, we end the entire story arc with Goblin Slayer going back to the kingdom where he is healed by the ex-machina magic of the priestess. But to elaborate more on the ending here, basically what happens is Goblin Slayer gets back up after sustaining all that horrific damage, the goblins get spooked, and while the goblin orc is sitting there molesting the priestess character, ultimately what happens is, due to the very fact that he was distracted with the sexy body of the priestess, he didn't see Goblin Slayer show up and stab them in the neck. They see the big guy die and all the little goblins freak out even though they outnumber the Goblin Slayer crew, and they all run away because they're afraid, which is something we haven't seen priorly within this series before, which is stuff the writer's just making up from D&D, WoW, and other stories he's played because he can't make up his own lore within his own goddamn story. Anyway, back to the goddamn story. like I said, Goblin Slayer this time gets incapacitated because, hey, he was hurt from the giant orc, right? But this time, he is literally healed by Ex Machina magic of the priestess, which is actually Ex Machina magic this time called Resurrection Miracle. Now, the way this spell works and the way this magic works is that it is a power that can only be used by a pure Virgin Mary. Yes, only virgins who haven't had sex can use this power. That's the Ex Machina. So the way the spell works is, like I said, priestess had to have sex with Goblin Slayer. Now, did that happen? No, most likely it didn't, considering that, hey, priestess is underage and Goblin Slayer is 22 years old. But the point that I'm saying here is that all of these characters are immature. The very idea that one of them actually had sex is completely beyond stupid. The idea of Elf Archer actually being in a functional relationship with another human being or another person of her kind is almost just... I can't even picture it in my mind. That's how inadequate the character is. That's how bad the character is. It's just so bad. Considering she's 2,000 years old, she's probably like 2,000-year-old virgin. That sounds like a fucking TV show. That's a great idea for a TV show. I haven't had sex in 2,000 years and my pussy's just tight as hell. I'm just gonna give it away to someone. That sounds like a great TV show. And you can basically have the finale of the scene. It's like the guy's going in and he's all like, oh, the fucking vortex. Oh, it feels like a goddamn vacuum cleaner. Oh! That'd be a great TV show. Someone needs to make a spin-off of this series and call it the 2,000-year-old Virgin Archer. Oh, that would be great. I think I got the perfect clip just for this occasion. I'm gonna see if I can insert it in right about now. But, yeah, that's gonna be it for that little joke that I just went on. Anyway, that pure version, bullshit is the stupidest shit I've ever heard on. And also, the writer pulls it out of his ass, so I'm not even sure how anyone accepts that kind of bullshit, let alone, let it slide by the editors, like I was saying with the virgin blah 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 stuff. But if you notice throughout the duration of this entire video, it's been nothing but Ex Machina and the graces of the writer that has gotten the characters out of these situations. Anyway, because I want to be done with this rancid dogshit story, Blade Maiden talks to Goblin Slayer despite her only meeting him for 7 chapters ago about the time she was brutally gang raped by goblins after she defeated the Demon Lord. I mean, this chick is so fucked up. She even shows the man her fucking rape scars. I mean, why would anyone... Man, this is this extra fetish bullshit that no one wants to see. I'm telling you, this series is just fan service wish fulfillment by the writer. The first question I have is, how do you defeat the Demon Lord, then get captured by goblins who have the intelligence of children that everyone wants to talk about? Well, the only answer the story gives you is, well, let me see here, the Wikipedia says, don't think about it. The second question is, what normal human being talks about this as someone they just met 7 chapters ago, which only amounts to about a day in time? I mean, seriously? You just walk up to someone and say, hey, want to hear about the time I was raped and want to look at my scars? I mean, that's not some normal shit. Now, the third question is, why is the Blade Maiden such a slut? The answer to the question, once again here, is, let me look on the Wikipedia page, let me read some of these previous Goblin Slayer comments these zealots have been leaving me. Okay, this says right about here, don't think about it. So, the way the entire story arc ends is everyone almost gets killed, nobody has any introspections about their lives, and finally, Goblin Slayer has another whore who he can add to his harem. With the addition of random LOL, 12-year-old behavior, like they were all kids. I emphasize once again, this story is garbage. But finally, we move to Goblin Slayer Brand New Day, the final shit stain to this entire series, which is once again another LOL, it's so random, it's so funny story spinoff. Now, we're going to go over this one super fast, even though I'm saying super fast and the video's super long already, but this one's really super trash. So, after meeting 2 more characters without names, they do have names, but they're obligatory and just stupid. we are quickly to learn that these two kids are adventurers. After wandering around this dungeon slash sewer, they discover dead bodies of children, which doesn't cause them any alarm or doesn't freak them out in any sense whatsoever, which leads into the next comedy scene, which then leads into the next comedy scene, which then leads into the next comedy scene, because it's funny. LOL, it's so random, hee. It's supposed to be funny, it's not. Have you noticed in any other series, Goblin Slayer Year 1 and just Goblin Slayer proper, any other character would just get skull raped and beaten to death, but when it comes to anyone the story writer wants to focus on, they automatically become Mary Sue's with so much plot armor. It's almost unbelievable that the fan base has such hardcore zealots within them. Anyway, after a bunch of useless dialogue, we're introduced into the Lancer character again, who seems to have another personality shift within his bipolarness. In Year 1, he's basically this annoying fuck with personality that resembles Natsu from Fairy Tail. Goblin Slayer proper, he's an asshole who does things for money and only money, besides when the plot demands it, and when it's ever necessary. And in this series, he's this cliche, everyday man who likes kids and helping people, and he even hands out fucking advice for free. And he gives this kid dirt cheap advice, and he just wants to be a helpful guy. This makes no sense. And of course, the magical hat girl is this LOL, I have the thing that I'm supposed to be having to help you in between my breasts, because everything that helps another human being I carry in my breast. I have this candle in my breast, I had that scroll I gave Goblin Slayer in between my breasts. I mean, this chick just has everything someone needs whenever the plot demands that another character needs something. It makes zero sense. This chick's core personality trait is I always have the thing someone needs, and I'm just going to be this blank slate until my personality needs to change for the plot reasons. Anyway, let's just end this piece of shit. So, Goblin Slayer shows up, he gives some kids some terrible advice, and a club he found beating a goblin to death, because that's what a little kid wants, to be completely honest. I want to hold a bloody club. The kids go out to the dungeons and sewers again, with no newfound knowledge, no new advice or super move, and basically they beat the hell out of all the rats, which is followed up by some more comedy scenes, because the kids have Mary Sue powers, and it was necessary for them to ultimately continue the series on without them dying. And of course, this is all followed up with some more extra lore about some god of judgment and order cult, and this isn't explained in the plot, so blah blah blah, throw that away. And they all run away from these cockroaches. They want to be adventurers. In the story, it's not funny. I mean, how can you have the series where characters are getting raped and beaten to death, then have this LOL sequence and they're running away from the little rats and cockroaches, that's funny? No, it's not funny. It's inconsistent with the world you presented thus far in the story. It makes zero sense. But, you know, as the plot continues on, the dumbass kid, the male one, does some more dumbass kid things. And he doesn't listen to his older sister, who tells him to stay the fuck out of the woods because there are goblins in the woods. But because, of course, he's a dumbass kid, and curiosity killed the cat, but it didn't kill the Mary Sue, he disobeyed his sister, and he went into the forest anyway, because he wants to see what a goblin looks at. I mean, this is just, no wonder people fucking die in this world. They're all just so fucking stupid. Oh my god. But at this point, we've been over so many storylines in the story, I can bet everyone can imagine what's going to happen next. So basically, after going into the woods, we get some more mumbo jumbo about how the government can't help people because fuck all about politics and protecting the human inhabitants. The kid goes into the woods, meets a bunch of goblins who have been effective previously in every other chapter in every other series of this franchise in this universe, ravaging through people and killing them, but somehow become ineffective because the Mary Sue plot device armor's wearing around this kid. The Deus Ex Machina, Goblin Slayer, shows up just in time, and he kills everyone, and he saves the day. The kid looks at the Goblin Slayer, and he's like, oh man, I want to be just like Goblin Slayer, and the kid goes home alive, without a scratch on him. And basically, the entire caveat to this entire story is the kid doesn't even learn his fucking lesson. He's probably going to go do it again. And most likely, he's going to get killed. Better yet, he'll probably survive. Oh god, this story is just so fucking painful. The end. I'm done. The end. This is the chapter of Goblin Slayer currently available. That's every chapter of Goblin Slayer. The characters in this series are boring and dull, the narrative is weak as shit, and it's not even passable, and the worst of it all is, it's littered with so much lazy writing and so much stupid comedy, it's almost hard to take this series so seriously. It makes something as abysmal as Persona 5 the animation seem good. This is the conclusion of the Goblin Slayer fucking sucks series. You can watch all the prior videos. Maybe I'll link them all up into one mega video or something like that. But the final verdict of this series is that it can fucking die in a piece of piss. I mean, Goblin Slayer fucking sucks. The end.